Hi, and welcome back to Coming to the Faith podcast. I'm your host, Marcos Pagan. In this episode, I sit down with John Paul Grajales, or JP, as those that are close and those that know. If you know, you know. Sits down and he unpacks his journey, what it's been like coming to the faith. He's a man of many talents. He wears many hats. Overall, amazing individual, someone you definitely want in your corner. I pray this episode blesses you. Enjoy. All right, well, JP, thank you so much, brother. I appreciate it. A lot of people, have definitely made mention of the fact that you and I have early, we have similar looks. Funny enough, it was just like it was some point. It was Wednesday.
Yes.
That a woman came down and was like, PJ, and I was like, hold on, JP, and then you came out. I was like, this is JP.
No, and the funny part is that they always butcher my name. It's not even JP. They don't
PJ.
call like PJ.
Yeah, it's like so. But thank you so much. I appreciate you, brother.
Thank you.
And not because you're here, and not because whatever. But I personally want to say thank you because you are a brother in the faith. But you're also a contributor to the podcast. We're able to do this because you allow us to use the space. You allow us to use the equipment and everything. And I have to, sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, just say thank you because no one else would really do that. Be trusting. I mean, Lonnie's, producer extraordinaire. He does the technical behind it. He's that guy. He's got a knack for it. But it's still your gear and your, the space.
No,
I just want to say thank you. I appreciate it, man. Because you could have said no.
I honestly appreciate what you're bringing to the body. There's a lot of content out there. We're living in an era of media where media has taken over our culture, and to have more voices and to have more people who are giving unfiltered messaging and true content that's true to the word and true to Christ, I think is the most important thing. And so for me, and for what we have here, this studio is not my studio. I believe it's a lot of it is my gear, but it's really the house of prayer studio. And so our philosophy is if you're serving in the house of prayer, if you're giving, there's a space, and if you have an idea, there's a space in the house of prayer where you could grow that. And we want to be able to help cultivate that. And so this is an example of that, where you shared your vision, your desire to produce something with Lonnie, and I said, well, how can I help? How can I help? How can I give you guys the tools to do it? And I'm glad that the little equipment that we've gained over the years has been able to be an instrument for you guys to put this message out there and use it for really, really, really good content. So,
no, I appreciate that, man. It's just, and it's nothing more than just to encourage anyone and everyone that would be listening, watching, what have you, whatever choice you make, and then just letting them know, like, hey, these are real human beings.
Yeah.
And it's not a one size fits all. It's not a neatly wrapped gift. It's, hey, these are flawed individuals. We're just like you and I. There's no difference. We're sinners all,
Amen.
But we've come to know Christ. We've come to understand that we are not who we were. We were not bound by our sin. We're not bound by our circumstance, that there is a hope. And it looks differently across medium, be it marketplace, ministerial, whatever that looks like, but just to be able to disseminate that information, share the different stories. Which brings me to my point, because I say this a lot, and I've had fun. I'm not going to lie. This is, season 1, and it's been fun, like getting to know people who I do everyday life with, people who I've either known from a distance or what have you. But like a brother that I interviewed, uniquely enough, during this season in Brother Frank, you and I, we share not only confusing similarities.
Let me get my yearbook. Hold on.
Exactly. But obviously we have a more profound background, and I'll let you go into that however far back you want to go. But the one thing that I can appreciate in more recent, we went to lunch actually, and you said the funny thing in what you're saying is while, yeah, we went to school together, we got to know one another, what have you, we were never as connected or as close as we have become because we're doing this together, because we're working together.
Yeah.
We serve together on platform, off platform. So just to be able to, and after you said that, I'm like, you know what, you're right. Like, yeah, like you were, you're older than me, not by much, but you're older than me, but you were always an upperclassman. You were always someone that I saw from afar. So now being on this side, you're a dad, your husband, you're in leadership here. You're an amazing worship leader. Like, just to be able to see that, you know what I mean? I'm just like, wow, it is true. Like, I've actually gotten closer to the man that I've always known of, but I think I have a better working knowledge of now, at least relationally. And I could appreciate that. So, I mean, I don't know how you feel, but that's my stance on that.
No, yeah, no. Our history goes back, man. We go back to. I should have brought it, man.
I can't find mine. I at least have, at the bare minimum, I at least have 4 yearbooks.
I have 3. So you have more than I do.
Yeah.
I have 3 yearbooks that I'm pretty sure my mom has. Where I have a couple pictures of you, and I was like, you know what? Let me be prepared.
With hair.
Yeah. With hair. Yeah, we both had hair.
Yeah.
All right, I'll give you that. Right.
Yeah.
Don't leave me hanging.
Yeah. You had a beautiful mane. Yeah, you had a beautiful mane, bro.
And we used to rock
black
it.
hair, bro, and we went with it. We had the so.
Oh man, and so no, I definitely have we have the history. And it was really interesting for over the years, I think you develop friendships and not to say when we were growing up, you were kids. I think we were like 3rd, 4th grade. I was in 4th grade. You were in 3rd grade.
Well, I stayed back once, so I was on that 5-year plan. So let's be honest, call a spade a spade. That's the only reason why you were an upperclassman, because I said no. Kindergarten will not be achieved. Kindergarten will not be achieved the first time, but I will conquer the second time.
That's so funny. So we grew up together, and we always had that experience. We had that relationship, and like you said, it wasn't until coming here and. Our history goes even back to even churches coming together.
I was just about to say that. It's like it wasn't school; it was school and then church.
Yeah, our church would do stuff together, so we would see each other every once in a while. And then we were kids too. You're a percussionist, you're a drummer. I was a drummer, and it's like I play drums, you play drums. I play better than you, you play better than me. It was always that. As a kid, you always have that dynamic, and so it was interesting. It wasn't until coming here to the House of Prayer, or actually. Wasn't until we did an event at our old church with Eastern Gate that we connected, and I saw you, and I was like, Marco, was like, wow, like where you been? And then you explained that you had been at the House of Prayer for a couple years from when they started.
No. Now I remember the very first time. I can't even tell you what you were wearing. You had on navy blue Dockers. You had a light blue shirt, and it wasn't MT25. Gary went to speak. I can even tell you the message he spoke on.
Yes.
He spoke on rebuilding the altar of prayer.
Yes.
You ministered with the team at the camp at the time.
That's so
and we connected,
funny.
And then you took me upstairs. You gave me
memory, man.
You gave me a tour of your studio space and all that, and you had mentioned
that's when it was.
Yeah, that's the first time where I was able to reconnect with you post all those years or whatever.
Jeez,
so yeah, and then MT25 came later.
Yeah.
Yeah,
wow,
long time, man.
That's good memory.
Yeah, long
but
time.
yeah, so that's where we connected, and for me it was like wow, but to see all these years pass by, see you still walking in the faith. Social media at that time wasn't a big thing where you could still be connected with somebody and follow them.
Might have been Facebook at the time.
Facebook might have been, or I'm sorry, MySpace, Facebook, that kind of stuff. Was around.
Were you on Mi Gente?
No, I never made it to Mi Gente, bro.
Okay, I was on Mi Gente.
And at our church, it was not a good thing to be on social media. So it was, MySpace was on the DL.
Yeah.
Connecting again and reconnecting and having a great appreciation to what we've been able to establish over the years and to develop a friendship that I truly cherish. I know I feel like we tend to look and categorize ourselves by our positions and our titles. But I think most of all, I think if we could change our mindsets into more of being servants and the fact that we're all in the same same playing field. We're on the same level. Whether I'm in a position or not, at the end of the day, I'm just a servant.
No.
And so, for me, it's been amazing to serve alongside you. To go back to when we were in third grade, fourth grade, and think about those times and how the Lord has brought us all the way to here, 2025, different walks of life, to now be here and to today be able to call you one of my good friends. It's amazing. So yeah.
You were given a one-time story, and we'll go into the question, but this opportunity one time, and I asked you about it, because as you know, I'm a baseball nut.
Yes.
I am a Yankee fan, as you are.
Yes.
I am a Yankee fan,
Yes.
but I love baseball. I'm a baseball purist.
Yeah, you're a purist. Yeah.
So years ago, you got an opportunity, you and Bernie, you got an opportunity. You guys got to walk
City Field.
City Field.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, when I saw the picture, I was just like, oh, you stink. Oh, but again, but that's just, the inner child baseball fan in me. So, but I have to say though, it's been fun. We had a very brief conversation, just this week of just the guy who doesn't see a lot. I do pay a lot of attention, and I was just encouraging you to let you know, like, hey man, bang up job. Like, I can appreciate, how you're navigating this, fatherhood and you as a husband and all that, so, but I got to ask you though, who is JP?
Who is JP? That's a good question. I don't think I thought about that enough. Who is JP? JP is a man of many hats. JP does a little bit of everything. JP, but most of all, I think at the root of it, JP is going back to what I was saying before, and it's kind of like what I'm living by right now, and I'm really trying to teach my children that and discipling them in that area. Is JP is a disciple. He's a servant. He's one who serves, and so because JP has that at the root of who he is, he's a servant. It doesn't matter where JP's at or what hat he's wearing at any given moment. That's who he is. And so JP could be a plumber tomorrow. And this week JP was a producer engineer doing a podcast on a Monday, and then an hour later he was a plumber getting water out of a room, and then he was a counselor. And so that's what JP is. JP, I guess if I think about it, and I don't like to think about that because I don't like to talk about myself, but at the root of it is that I like to consider myself and try to always maintain myself in that place of servanthood, that I'm learning, and I'm always keeping myself in that place of JP is no greater than anybody else. He's a servant. JP is also a father and a husband. He's a son. And as a father, I'm learning to as we were talking this week, I'm learning to serve my children, not just to be a provider, not just to be one that comes home, provides a paycheck, provides a roof over their head, which I think we've learned that, especially culturally as Hispanics, we know that our it's just how we've been brought up. The dad brings the money to the house, and that's it. That's pretty much it. But as a believer, I think there's more to that, and I'm learning, to break the walls of culture, where it's, I'm not just a provider. I'm a servant. I'm serving my children, and that's in all aspects. How do I serve them in providing for their emotional needs, their financial, of course, but also their spiritual. As a husband, I'm learning, how do I serve my wife, and as a husband, I think through culture again, we've come to the place where, I'm supposed to be served, and we're very selfish.
Yeah.
And I could be honest, and I could say my first couple of years of marriage, it was tough. I was very selfish. And in the last half, after I had children, it just shifted my whole mindset, because you learn to be selfless. It's not about you anymore. It's about these little ones. Mm-hmm. And so I've had to change that also in my own marriage, where it's like, no, I'm serving my wife in every capacity, and being more of that man. And so I guess at the root of it, at the root of who JP is, I would say that it's serving. I'm trying to be a good servant to the Lord. First and most, no, the main thing. That's the first thing. And then from there, go into the place of serving my brothers, serving people like you, serving this house of prayer, my family, my children, my parents, my community.
And honestly, you're not perfect.
Yeah. No,
but
no, not at all.
But you do it well, though. Little story on
Praise.
you. It's funny because you're a visionary, and you're definitely one of those people who's like, I would have been curious to know, like, God's conversation with Abraham. Like, what do you see? I would be curious to know, God goes up to JP, like, what do you see? And then you go, well, if we put that wall there, we could set up, a division between the 2 points. But that's you in a nutshell, though. And I have to ask you this one question.
Go ahead.
And so, because servanthood, and it is a part of who you are. Like, you do a lot. Do you find it ever to a point where you go, hold on, I'm gonna pause, or no? You know what I mean? Like, because you could do that, but burnout is real, and you're one human being. Like, you're not an octopus.
No,
you can't have a tentacle in every.
Absolutely.
So, you ever come to a point where it's like, I really can't do this?
Yeah, yesterday. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah.
Okay.
No, man. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was just having this conversation with my wife, and and thank God for my wife, because it's what
you got a special partner.
It's what keeps. It's what I could only do what I do because I have a partner that allows me and compliments me in that. But we just had that conversation where we're like, man, like, don't you ever feel like you want to just move to a farm and just live a very peaceful life? Because all I know from very young is serving, is being involved, is giving 100%, and throughout the years I've had burnout and I've had bad experiences of abuse or and so, like, that happens a lot, where I'm constantly reminding myself of, like, man, what is the purpose in which I'm doing this, and why am I doing it? I have to, because if not, my serving becomes one that comes from a place of bitterness and resentment. And I've had moments and seasons where I realized, man, like, I'm not serving the way I know I should, and I know it's not honoring God. I'm just doing it out of commitment, and I'm not enjoying this process anymore. And so I've had to then learn how to pull back or just cut off, which is a challenging part, because you're literally saying something, something that I enjoy so much. I'm moving away from it, and there's a part of that I have to kind of keep myself in balance and check, because am I enjoying it too much, where it's like I'm just doing it because I'm enjoying it, or am I doing it because I'm finding real purpose and assignment in it? And so I've had to really put people in my life, my wife, leaders around me, friends that are constantly checking me, and are just, hey, are you okay? Are you? I know you love to serve, and I know you say yes to a lot of things, but are you okay? And I'm honest with them, and they're the ones who check me. And I do have moments almost daily where I wake up and I'm like, do I really want to do this? And I'm like, all right, yes, I said yes to you, Lord. All right, I'm gonna do it 100%. Let's go for it.
Cool.
And so, but it's a reality, though.
No, listen, it's your story, and it's your, I'm just the question guy.
No. It's funny because I just had that conversation. My wife was just saying, you don't want to go to a farm, like, far away, like, where no one's gonna bother us, no one's gonna call you, your phone's not gonna ring, like, JP, how do we fix this? JP, where do we go with this? And I'm like, I would, but, like, I don't know if I would be happy. I don't know. It's weird.
No, and as you've done it for a while, you've served, and again, similar backgrounds, different ministries, but similar backgrounds. You served if it wasn't on platform,
Yeah.
it was and within your capacity with what you could. But you are definitely. I'd be bold enough to say you were borderline a Uriah when it came to the ministry,
Mm.
where it's like, hey, something needed to be done. I'm willing to just give me a plow,
Yeah.
give me a shovel, whatever. Like I'll do what I have to. So,
Yeah.
and but again, that's something that I've observed from afar because it's to me, someone asks me about you, that's what I'm gonna say. I'm like JP serves. JP's he's hardworking. There's a lot of duty. Like he's definitely like he sticks his hand in it, and for the most part, like he's the guy. It's like I start this, I'm finishing it.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I will give you that, and I do understand that component because it's a reality not only culturally but ministerially. So yeah, I could agree with you. So now my other question to you now, however, is because again you've alluded background ministry, history, so forth and so on. So I gotta ask you though, what led you to that place? Like what led you to the faith? Not quite. I don't want you to answer the question of when you made a confession of faith,
Yeah.
where you said, okay, effective like I'm
Yeah.
because I just had an interview and I was saying that like, oh yeah, I always answered the prayer for salvation. I always did that. I just wanted to make sure I dot my I's, cross my T.
Yeah.
But there was definitely, as far as you're an individually could remember, this day this happened for me. But before that though, leading up to it, what led you to the faith?
What led me to the faith? That's a tough question. I was thinking about that earlier. Led me to faith. I think for me personally, what led me to so when you say lead to the faith, to actually walk in Christianity
No, just
or-
the exposure, like because like
Okay.
you come from
see
the
what you're saying.
background, you know what I'm saying. So not quite the definitive marking
what you're saying.
moment
Yeah,
of
yeah.
when you say Lord come into my life, not
So-
that like, but what you were
growing
clearly
up,
exposed.
Yeah. So I grew up since I was five. I grew up into a home that was a believing family. My parents, at a young age, immigrant husband and wife came to this country, not as believers, encountered the Lord here as believers back in the 80s, 80, 83, 82. Soon after had me. And so I always say I was brought into the faith. Like I didn't come from the world or from a secular background to
Yeah.
come into faith. I grew up right into it. And all I know from when I was a child is the faith, is church, is something that had to do with our faith. And so yeah, my parents at a young age started seeking the Lord out, and slowly just grew and their passion for the Lord just grew even more. And that's been the example that I saw all my life as a child.
Okay. And so your parents they migrate here from beautiful Colombia.
Colombia, yes.
And then they get together and they have a strapping young man in JP.
Strapping, yeah.
And then Mikey too. We can't forget.
Oh,
There's
my
a
little
Mikey.
brother,
Yeah,
yes.
we love Mikey. But all right. So then they have you. So now, what was childhood into adolescence, given that background?
Yeah.
Because you were steeped in the ministry. I mean, I
Yeah.
love hearing your story of like your first exposure to music.
Yeah.
You said that you had the guida or
guida.
whatever. So, but what was that background? Like, what was that like? All right, so this is all you've known. You were raised in it at the bare minimum, at the very least, in a God-fearing home.
Yeah.
So, what was that upbringing like? Childhood into adolescence, and then
It was great. That upbringing was really good. I really give kudos to my parents. They did a great job in setting a good foundation of faith, of honoring God, of loving God. My parents. I will even say that a lot of what I am in terms of who JP is as a servant is because I saw that in my parents. My parents were from a young age. That's what I observed. They were good examples of people that just wanted to serve. I have memories of my parents being the ones that had a minivan at the church, and they would be the ones that would leave early on a Friday for Bible study to pick up people that needed a ride to church. And so we were always known as the family that would go early to pick up people, bring them to church, and then leave late. And we would get home. Service ended at 9:30, 10 o'clock maybe, and we were getting home at 11 because we were driving all the way to Newark in the hood to drop a family off, to then go to Elizabeth to the port to drop another family off, to then, wow, typical Hispanic, we're all packed up in the back, trying to make space. And my parents were not willing to leave one person behind. The minute they would drive off from the church property and they would see that there was someone waiting at the bus station, they're like, hey, you need a ride? Come on, no, don't worry about it. We'll fit in, we'll figure it out. And so that's what I saw. I saw a lot of that. And that helped set a good foundation for me. But my parents were really God-fearing people, and being immigrant parents and being people that weren't from here, didn't know the language. I saw also another level and example of faith that was just raw, of not knowing what tomorrow's going to look like. Growing up in a home of immigrant parents, it was difficult. We had really tough seasons where my father didn't have work, and my parents didn't panic. They knew who to call out to, and so they would get on their knees. We were young enough. I think we must have been like 7 or 8. I remember. They would get on their knees and they would pray, and I would observe that, and I would see that, and I would see the miracle happen before my eyes. It definitely strengthened my faith growing up, because I saw the faithfulness of God through it all. And so, I have a story where I remember my mom going to a place in Elizabeth, Shoppers World, where, there was, stories of like, this is going to happen. There's going to be raids and whatnot back in the 90s. And my mom is like fearful, man. My mom is like nervous. And I snuck into the car a stick, and this is my reality. I sneak into the car, a stick, a pole, and I'm like, Mom, don't be afraid. I got you. I got a pole, and if someone tries to grab him, I hit them. And my mom was like, what are you doing, my papa? Like I don't. My faith is not on that. She was like, I'm emotional in the fact that you want to protect me, but God is the one who's protecting us. And I remember those type of scenarios were very common, where it was instructing and just like, no, we don't put our faith in man. We don't put our faith in objects. We don't put our faith in a building. We put our faith in God. And so, and through the years, I just saw God's faithfulness where my father's job just increased, and we had always enough, and enough to be able to have for ourselves, but to share with others. And so again, that fueled my ability to grow in just learning how to be a servant. My parents were also and I said it a little while ago to somebody. My parents were the ones that in the church, voluntarily, like they weren't getting paid for this. They would be the ones to clean the church after service on a Friday night. They would vacuum. They would. This was before that we were much more organized, but they were the ones who say, hey, look, there's a need, we'll do it. And so they would be the ones to vacuum, mop, do the floors and wipe down the tables, everything. They were the ones that would clean. And one of the things that they always told me was that 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, no one's in the building. I want to be a drummer one day. I love the drums. I'm like, can I play the drums? There's no one here. No one's going to ever know. And they're like, yeah, absolutely. You could play, but you have to help clean. If you clean, we'll let you go on there for a little bit. All right. And so I remember, all right, I'm clean the building. I would go with my Lysol spray and go around the room and spray, throw out the trash, get the bags, throw all the trash out. And then I'm like, hey, Dad, Mom, I did my jobs. All right, now you can go up. And so those little things help. They were stewarding, discipling me in that area of just growing in service. That before you do anything else, let's do the first thing first, which is to serve the Lord, and in the place of intimacy where no one's watching that. I could honestly say no one ever saw that. No one came to my parents, and at least that I saw, came to them and pat them on the back and said, "Man, good job! Like, you guys are amazing," or "Here's an extra $100 for your service." And my parents never complained, and they did this for years. Fast forward, as a parent, I'm teaching my kids that every once in a blue moon, I bring my kids out on Saturday. We're not watching cartoons. We're not going to play. We're going to go to eat. We're going to go to the building. We're going to go to EG, and we're going to vacuum the building. We're going to clean up a little bit. No one's got to tell me anything. I got access. You guys do this. You guys clean up, and then we'll set everything up. And so trying to instill that in them. And so I learned that at a young age. I saw it. I saw their example. I'm trying to do that as well with them. But that was the environment. That was the home I grew up in. And those first couple of years, from being a young kid to a teenager. As I got older, it changes a little bit. The dynamic changes a little bit. My dynamic. I'm a teenager now. It's very different. It's different when you're raising young ones, little ones, where you have more control. As you get older and now you have a little bit more freedoms, you're 15, 16, things change. But that early years were really fundamental for us to develop and grow in our faith with the Lord.
Okay. So now fast forwarding a little bit. So that's early childhood. So what does, I got to see VCA, basketball teammate.
Yep. Wow. We were on a basketball team, Marcos.
Well, all right. You started. I came in. I played, I think, a total of maybe like 5 minutes.
The fact that I started was also it's just wild. And I was a center.
Yeah. Well,
a 5'10" center. Like
in some of those unique games we had. But
oh man.
What was, because I wasn't with you all the time.
Yeah.
Like I said, you were ahead of me, but not because of anything else other than I just wanted to repeat kindergarten. What was adolescence like? Because one thing's to be a kid and like, hey, we did this because this is what my parents said, and this is the example they gave me, and we do it. Now you're older, you're a teenager, and again, I never ever, and I'm not praising you, not because you were next to me. I definitely got in trouble, and we were in a Christian school.
Yeah.
So I definitely got into way more trouble than I ever saw you get in trouble in school. So
I didn't get in trouble as much because my mom was working at the school.
Well, this is also true.
That didn't help my situation. I really couldn't get away with anything. If I did anything, my mom would immediately find out. So, so like I had a unique situation because. Like for me, it was different as a teenage, growing up as a teenager and adolescent. It was tough. Like I was saying before, when my parents were raising young kids, when they were, you're talking about 5 through 11, 12. It's a very different dynamic. You have more control. You have a stronger grasp on what they do, what they don't do. I go with my parents everywhere. It was always like that. As I got older. And I became a teenager, 13, 14, 15, 16. What you're kind of alluding to, those years, it was a lot more difficult. Living in a very sheltered, all those early years, living in a sheltered home, made it very difficult. So when I got to adolescence, and I started experiencing and seeing stuff, my curiosity started opening up. And my questions started opening up, and why can't I do this, and why can't they do that, and I can't do this? And the answer was always because we said so. And the answer
very Hispanic.
I don't knock. I'm a parent now, and sometimes it comes out. Well, I said so. Like and then I'm like, wait, hold on, let me explain this. But it was a lot of that. It was in some of it was explaining, some of it was also just not knowing how to explain it and just giving the default answer of these are the rules. Yeah. And so it was difficult because we had the dynamic of I was in a private school where my mom was very involved in just being present, which in many ways was good in protecting me from just doing stupid things. But because I wasn't like this kid that didn't want to do anything bad. I was a kid. But then my parents I would do 2 years in private school. I did 7th grade and 8th grade. No, 6th grade and 7th grade I did in a public school. And then things got really bad there. Because in my 4th and 5th, I had left already the private school, and I was already in a public school, and exposure to things were rampant. My mom didn't have as much control. She didn't have as much involvement because she wasn't on the school premises. So by the time I get to middle school, yeah, everything gets exposed, and I think it revealed my own heart at a young age of like, man, like you're not this good church kid that everybody talks about, or you're not this good kid that maybe you think your mom sees or your dad sees. I had a lot of sneaky stuff in my own heart that I was dealing with, where I had identity crisis, which 6th grade, 7th grade.
Well, yeah, you're coming into your own.
You're just coming into your own. You're in that middle stage, where you're like not in high school yet. You're not up there, but you're not in elementary school anymore. You're in this middle, and so you're trying to be like the 8th graders that are about to go to high school. And I remember struggling so bad. So like I'll give you a quick story. I remember my mom was big on like the clothes I would wear. I never grew up wearing expensive clothes. My mom we were very modest. My parents would go to Broad Street. We would buy clothes at C.H. Martin. I didn't know anything about brands because I didn't know anything. I remember I had a shirt, and my shirt was like "Jesus loves you" and stuff like that. Very Christian. And going to school, like I would get mocked and I would get ridiculed, and people would laugh at me because I didn't look the part. I didn't look like other kids,
like everybody else.
It wasn't even the messaging. It wasn't. I wasn't being persecuted.
Yeah.
It was just I looked different.
Yeah.
And I remember my shirts, the lettering would cheap shirts.
Yeah.
The lettering will fall off.
Yeah.
I'll get my mom washed it a certain way. It was missing a J. It said Jesus. It didn't say Jesus.
Yeah.
And so then I started asking my mom, "Hey, can you give me something else?" So at that time, I think it was Paco jeans or something like that. Wow. I'm going back then. Wow. And so like I'm thinking, this is stuff is like I got new clothes, and I go to school and they rip me. They destroy me because Paco jeans wasn't popular. It was like cheap clothes at the time. And I'm like having an identity crisis because I'm like, Mom, everybody's making fun of me. I'm getting bullied and and why can't I have this? And I didn't understand it. My mom did the best she can, man. And my dad did the best they could.
I get it.
And I remember my parents, we went that one summer. I was going to go into 7th grade or 6th grade. 7th grade. My parents, we will go. I get my first pair of Tims because Tims were just starting to become the thing.
Yeah.
And JP was his identity crisis. My mom was like, I'm buying the boots because they're expensive and you wanted them, but you're not allowed to take them to school. And I'm like, what's the point then? Like, I'd rather just go in socks. I was like, there's no point in me going if I have the Tims. And how am I going to tell? And I'm not telling her this, but this is in my own heart.
How can I show people I have Tims?
How do I show off to everybody that JP is a cool guy and JP is not like, and so I snuck him in. I took my books out and I snuck him in my book bag. And I go to school and I'm like, the whole time I'm like, my mom's going to find out. My mom's going to find out. She's going to find out that I got my Tims in my book bag. And I go to my locker and I'm like excited. I go, yo, guys, look at my Tims. I put my Tims on. And they're like, yo, but like I thought you didn't have Tims right now. No, I got them now. And I'm telling you, this is my heart was so revealed. I put them on and I'm walking down the hallway. I'm feeling myself. And look, mind you, in retrospect now, reflecting, no one cared. No one was looking. I could picture myself now as a fool walking down the hallway thinking that my boots are glowing, but no one's noticing. But inside my heart, I'm feeling myself. And I'm walking down and lo and behold, I don't know how or why, my mom is there.
Oh.
She's walking down the hallway and she happened to come into the building. I must have forgot. She realized I forgot my books. And so she she wanted to be a good mom and picked them up. I ran as fast as I can to my locker.
Scuffed up.
I scuffed those boots up. I didn't care because all I cared at that point wasn't what people thought.
It was your mom. The wrath of mom.
I envisioned was my mom dragging me by the hallway, beating the life out of me. Not that she would have, but just that's the picture I had in my mind. Because I respected her. I didn't want to dishonor her. Despite everything, I didn't want to disappoint her. And that was one of my biggest things. I didn't want to ever disappoint her, but I wanted to live a double life. I wanted to live my life at school and be this fake Christian, and then at home be the saint, the child that my mom raised, the one that had
the ideal child.
Ideal, because I didn't want to disappoint her. And I struggled. I struggled so hard for a long time with this double standard of life, and I think that took me years into my high school, where I still struggled, because it got to a point where at the public school, it got so bad that I told my mom, you need to get me out of here. Like, this place is bad. Like, it's bad. It's getting worse and worse. And not only from the perspective of what it was doing to me, but just the violence at that time. I'm talking about the late 90s in Elizabeth. The schools were just bad. Kids were getting thrown out of buildings, windows, fights between schools. I got jumped for no reason. So I was a kid.
Just you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I was a kid. So I was a kid that would wait for their ride, for their mom to pick them up. And so no one really messed with those kids. Fights would happen off school. It was so bad that they were just jumping kids randomly. Yeah. And so I was sitting there with another kid that mom would give a ride, and I'm just sitting there just waiting for my mom, and I'm like, everybody's walking home, and some kid just comes behind me and ironically grabs a pair of Tims, wraps them up and ties them and swings them and knocks me out and hits me over the head. That day I told my mom, I'm done. I don't want to come back. I'm like, this is crazy. I don't feel safe. I don't feel good about myself. I'm struggling with stuff in my life, and you know what? Take me back to that VCA school. I don't know where, if it's still open, I want to go back there. And so my mom then puts me back to VCA. And for a season, that was good for me. It's what I needed. It set certain things back in place. But growing up, that
wasn't any easier, though. Let's just be clear. And I've said this to Frankie, and you know it to be true. It wasn't that VCA was a bad school, but let's call it what it is. Just because it was a private school, by no means was it a cakewalk. That was the school you went to when either it was prison or the military. Like, it was like you had no other option. There was no option C.
That was the interesting part. It was, I realized that it was that you would have all these like teachers that had their Christian little kids or homeschool that would bring them to school, like wanted to put them in an environment with other students. And what you had was that mixture of a lot of like protective, sheltered kids combined with kids that were kicked out of school, were expelled, and their parents just didn't know what else to do.
It was their wits' end. That was it.
And then so you would mix these two together, and it was a recipe for like disaster. Like, you just didn't know if it didn't have good mentorship, it would go either way. So it really fell upon the parents to be, the ones to steward that. And that was an interesting season. I did that for 2 years after that. I did my 8th, 9th, and 10th. And then I asked my parents to put me in another public school, which was in a different city. So I was like, you know what? My last 2 years, I want to go back to public. And yeah, but it was interesting. It was definitely trialing. It was those years revealed a lot. I definitely struggled with this dynamic of realizing that I was living a double life for a long time. I think up until my senior year of high school, which then leads me into where I came to finally say yes to the Lord. That was the point. So I grew up in the faith, like you alluded to, signed my name plenty of times at the altar. 12 years old, was on the worship team. One of the requirements was you were supposed to have given your life to the Lord. I did in many ways. I thought, yeah, I did, but going back, I'm like, did I truly though? And I realized my those years were really difficult. I didn't have really anybody in my life other than some friends that I respected, but it was a very dark and lonely season because I was trying to hide my lifestyle from my family because I didn't want to disappoint them because of what they expected, what the church expected, what the pastors, the leaders expected of JP. And then at school, it was a totally different JP. And I struggled with that for a long time. And I ended up hitting a brick wall senior year of high school.
You got confronted with your own sin nature, as it were.
Oh, yeah. I went through a really dark place. I'm not ashamed to even talk about it because it's part of the process. And
listen, you share what you want. It's your story, bro. I'm not gonna censor you.
It definitely. I think it's important that we share stuff like this because it does edify people in different stages.
Because it shows your humanity. It shows the fact that I lived, and it's one of my my Marcos philosophies. But I live by the idea, the understanding that as long as they continue to put erasers on pencils, humans are imperfect.
Mm-hmm.
The day that stops, humanity's been perfected. We're carefree. We're without error. But because I know the word of God, because I know that this is really weak, because I know that I am inwardly a depraved person, because it's the nature in which I was born into, that understanding of like, guys, I please don't be fooled for 1 second, because I actually mentioned that to Gary, where I was just like, just because I grew up in the church and just because I was exposed to all this, trust me, I said it, I was a wretched man that I am, because I knew the lingo, I knew what to do. It's like kind of taking the same road to work every day.
Yeah.
You know where the curbs are, you know, the fast lane, you know where the potholes are. So I had that understanding. I can navigate that. But the one thing at least for myself, I will not speak for you, but the one thing that I could say from childhood, adolescence, that I can say is I was instructed in religion, and it gave me foundational basis. And it had its moments and it had its strengths, but it gave me religion. I didn't understand the relational aspect to walking out this life as a disciple of Jesus. While, yes, he's an all-consuming fire. Yes, he, you know, my perspective as a child, it's like, well, you know, if you're good, God will take care of you. But then the other side of that is like, but he's just waiting for me to mess up because he's going to strike me down because he's Joseph Stalin sitting on his throne and he's just waiting to punish me. And that, again, I will not speak for you, but at least that was my upbringing. So I could appreciate your honesty and your candor. So adolescence at 17, that's why you disappeared. Because I always wonder about those kids that never come back the next year. So I always wonder, I'm like, what happened? Because funny enough, either my junior or senior year, we did a walking tour. And by this point, it was your freshman year at UCC. So I caught you in the common area again and yet again. Our paths crossed. I was like, "Hey, JP, how you doing?" Like, it was just one of those things where, like, every now and then you'll just drop into Marcos's life. It was like, "Hey, JP, how you doing?"
I was in 13th grade. UCC, man, that was another interesting season.
Well, you can't spell success at UCC.
No,
but now they're Union College.
No knock on UCC.
Oh, well, no.
I know plenty. My wife, she got her degree at UCC, then went to Kane, and then did what she did.
Oh, she's better than me. I went to Middlesex. I got like 24 credits, and I was like, all right, I can't do this. And then I got my degree online.
I tried UCC, and UCC was just not good for me. Because it was all the people that I knew, and it just wasn't working. But fast forward. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, you're fine, man. We're casual.
We meet. We cut. I
did a walking tour at UCC again. I must have been 11th or 12th grade, and doing a walking tour, and you happened to be chilling on one of the couches.
That was a problem.
And then I was like, I know that guy. So I came over, yo, what's up? And then you had this like, oh my God, hey, what are you doing?
Like, oh crap, I gotta hide stuff.
So what was that like? So at 17, you make a decision. So what leads you to that decision?
A dark place, a really dark place. Yeah, no, it's realized. I think we just so today we just finished watching a scene the night before that is kind of reminded me of that, which was my walk with. I always identify myself as a Peter, walking with the Lord and having really really intimate, beautiful moments with the Lord as a young person, where I had great times, but then I would move. Like I was there. I was in walking with him, and it should have been in a better place. And I found myself denying him for like the last 3 years of my life of high school, 2 years of high school. Find myself in this constant denial of like wanting to, not wanting to, and then when push came to shove, I found myself like when I had to make choices, I found myself in my heart denying him, not physically and walking away from the faith in any way, but in my heart, I felt like I had denied him, and the consequences of that were the things that were happening in my life, and I found myself in a very lonely place, and I kind of identify with Peter, where like I wonder what that would have felt like when he denied Christ, and he knew, and he had said, "I would never deny you," and I told plenty of people I would never deny Jesus. That Jesus is my man. Like I love Jesus with all my heart. Oh, I love you, Jesus, and times at the altar and worship, and then I would be in the place. I'm like, what the heck was going on there? Was it all emotions? Was it all fake? Was it all? So having that constant battle in my own mind and in my heart, came to a crossroad where I had lost a lot of things. I had lost opportunities for university. I was trying to get into a really good university, and I wasted the opportunity. Um, I had done dumb things as a kid, just out of just just being dumb. Um, got myself into trouble.
Mm.
My parents had put a lot of trust in me. I'm 17 and a senior in high school, 17, ready, pretty much ready to graduate. Top, I think I was top 20% of my class.
Nice.
So I was a good student. Everything was going well. A lot of trust in my parents. My parents put a lot of trust in me. They went away, did some stupid stuff on a weekend, where I was so tired of myself and of my fake walk with the Lord and denying him so much that I said, forget it. Let's just do it. And I did some stupid stuff and found myself where I'm like, I found myself in a hole where I had dug myself into, and I didn't feel like I had anyone else that could help me out. And now my friends that were with me, uh, my parents who had set these amazing boundaries all my life, had sheltered me. I had figured out how to break the shelter and do my own thing. The people at church that nothing could get me out of it. And I remember being in my room on a Saturday afternoon, um, and crying out to the Lord, just crying out to the Lord, because I felt like I had failed them so bad and miserably, and I just said, God, I know you're real, because I've seen your miracles, I've seen your work, I've seen you all my life, and it's crazy that I've gone this far, but you're so faithful that you're still calling me in. And so I remember feeling the I remember feeling the embrace of the Lord. Of I don't even know how to describe it. It just felt like an embrace, and it felt like Jesus was embracing me, and thinking, in this time, I need my mom, I need my dad, my church friends, family. I don't have family, friends, leaders, and I'm in this dark room by myself. And the only thing I could sense is the Lord embracing me. The person who I thought I had abandoned and I had given up on
Mm.
was the one person that was willing to embrace me. And despite my failures, despite me giving up, despite the hypocrisy of life that I lived, um, giving in to sin, the hidden sin in my heart, he still welcomed me in. And so it was that day that I remember vividly that I gave my life to the Lord. And I said, Jesus, I'm going to serve you the rest of my life. I don't know what that's going to look like because I don't know. I don't have a plan. I just know that I want to be your servant. And so from there on was that I changed everything. I decided then to all right, I'm going to try to figure this out in a more practical way, what college is going to look like. And I tried to go to college and figure that out. But from that moment on, it was where it shifted for me in my heart, where I'm going to serve the Lord. I'm going to give it my 100%. I'm going to learn how to share what I've also learned with others and disciple as many as I can. And so I remember prior to that, people would say, "Hey man, you got to share, man. You got there has to be more in you than just being a drummer." And I would just say, no, JP's just a drummer. JP just plays drums. I would never be a youth leader. I would never be a whatever. He called my bluff because I had said, "Lord, I want to serve you now." And so now, like shortly after that, it's like, "Hey, look, we want you to start helping with the youth." At 18, we feel like you could help out. And so the Lord started opening doors. And so what I would deny just a year ago, because I knew my heart, I knew how bad I was. I was like, I got nothing to give. What am I going to share with anybody? Who am I going to disciple? Who am I going to speak into? And I'm worse. I'm the worst of the worst. I'm just a drummer, and I could get away with that. Though in my heart, there was always a fear and trembling when I would go on the altar. And I would every time I would kneel and like, "Lord, Father, forgive me." But I felt like I was just becoming religious. Finally, at that point, my heart changed and it started going through the process of transformation. Like anything, it's a process.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't change one day to the other and became this perfect person in any way. We're being perfected in Christ every single day. But I definitely started striving towards living like Christ from that moment on. And so that was my marking point. My marking point was 17 years old in my bedroom, in a dark room, in a very dark place, alone, and just wanting to give up, not suicidal.
No, I get it.
Not like that, even though the stuff I'd done, not drugs or anything like that, but like alcohol and stuff like that, took me to a point where if I would have kept on going that path.
Yeah.
It was a short, like, it's crazy. It wasn't, the Lord was so gracious that it wasn't even a long path. It was like a couple weekends of just like giving up and just going dumb.
Yeah.
And then finally one weekend, the weekend of that Saturday encounter, that Friday night, should have been at church, wasn't at church, called out, whatever, and hung out with some friends and said, "Hey, let's get drunk." Got drunk. Mind you, parents are not home. My brother's there. And I'm being such a bad example. And so I always struggle with that. My brother's watching and he's there and he goes to his room. I get really, really, really messed up. Really, really, really drunk. And to the point that the next day, if the person that was with me but my friend wasn't there in the bed, I probably would have choked in my own vomit, probably died. How bad I was vomiting. And he was able to catch me, push me over to the side, and I was able to then throw up on the side of the bed. But that was my, like, what am I doing? What am I, like, who is this? Like, who's this man? And then I had a whole flashback. And then that Saturday morning, that happened. They all leave. And then I'm sitting before the Lord. And I'm in this dark room crying before him. And I encounter him.
I get
that.
So
that was my experience.
All right. So you came to phase 17. So what's your journey been like since then? Because it's not to say, all right, Jesus,
right,
I'm a disciple, life's perfect, life's good. Clearly there's been multiple changes. Like we alluded to. You had hair. You were a young, strapping young man, and
I had hair. Yes. Strapping, yes.
Then you meet your lovely wife at some point. But what was that? So you make your profession of faith. What was that journey? What's that been like since then? From that moment forward.
From that moment forward has been it's been a process. Again, it's a process of sanctification is interesting. It's not an easy one.
It's not a one and done.
It's definitely not a one and done. I have heard certain stories of people who have had radical changes. One day they were one way, the next day they were. That's not my story. My story was one of I had that encounter. I finally give my heart to the Lord, and I say that's it, and then it becomes a process. And yeah, I struggle with things that everybody else struggles, but now because I'm not giving into my struggle, and so I learned real quick. I need people around me. Something that I did when I was a teenager in my adolescence was I hid everything. Everything was hidden. Everything, because I was afraid of shame. I was afraid of the embarrassment of disappointment in my leaders and my parents. So everything was hidden. Everything, no one knew the stuff. When I told my mom later on the stuff I did, she couldn't believe it. I had to wait 20 years though, because I didn't want to get a chancleta. So it took a while, but like everything was hidden. Like my exposure to pornography was hidden. Like how that happened. Like my mom did everything from like all the Christian websites and boxes she could put on the cable to everything. I found a way because I was curious, and no one was talking to me about these things. So fast forward to when I come to the Lord, I realized early on that all those things get broken when you bring sin to light. You take darkness and you shine a light on it and expose it, and now it has no power over you. And so I remember having people around me, leaders, a good friend of mine, Bernie, who became my accountability partner, who I would meet with, not regularly, but whenever he was always available. And we would sit in his car and we would talk and I would share stuff, and he would be transparent and honest with me about the struggle and that was sobering. And so it helped a lot, because now I'm 17, I'm not dating. I'm just waiting at this point. And then I meet my wife, who we meet when we're like 16, 17. We were good friends, and by the time I'm 19, 20, we start dating. And I'm a man. I have my struggles, and I'm honoring God. That became a reality, a real struggle, where it's like, all right, we're both going to honor God, and we're not going to do what everybody else does, let's say, or society tells us, or culture dictates. We want to honor God, but in the context of holiness, it's really difficult. And so we had to do a lot of things and a lot of ups and downs, accountability amongst each other, and that was. I'm thinking to myself. I was just having a conversation with somebody this week. That was probably the hardest part of that whole season, the relational aspect. That the ministerial stuff. I came to the Lord. I gave my heart to the Lord. I immediately started serving. I in my weakness, I started just.
You went to what you knew to do. Yeah.
So I just started serving people, and that just grew. I had opportunity to speak. Then I became a youth leader. Then I was more involved in the worship team. So that side of the external stuff kind of just grew, and the Lord just opened opportunities, and I learned to just say yes to the Lord. On the side of just personal, the hardest time was that the relational, the courting. That I didn't think it was gonna be that hard. Honestly, I thought we'll get through this. We'll be fine. It was difficult, man. I remember struggling, having really tough moments, praying with my wife, but we saw the greatest breakthrough. The Lord really, really encountered us both in that, and it wasn't perfect by no means. We lived in a really tough time of church, I think, in the sense that it was purity culture.
Yeah.
And so like there was these big
True love waits.
true love
Yeah.
waits, and which there's a lot of truth to it, and I still look at it. I still remember those times, and I'm like, yeah, there was also some other stuff that I'm like, man, that was tough. That I just, I don't know. And so like one of the things that I struggled with was being the poster boy of true love waits. And in my heart, we're like, man, I'm not perfect. Like I have my things, and I'm a work in progress. And so that always became a difficult part that I had to navigate with the Lord,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like, God, you know my heart,
Mm-hmm.
you know what you do, and what you redeem, you redeem, and your blood is perfect, and I don't have any shame of sin anymore. But when you were under the microscope or the magnifying glass of purity culture and church culture,
culture, community, and
bro,
so
like
forth. Yeah.
I would struggle.
Yeah.
I was struggling, and so meanwhile, my wife and I are dating, and that was probably the toughest season, and we thank God we got married soon after we started dating. Three years into our courtship,
Mm.
we got married, and it was one that was good. We needed it, and we loved each other already. And now, thank God, we're 14 years into our marriage, and yes, 14 years into our marriage, uh, beautiful family, kids, and everything. And that's been its own journey as well. It's been interesting. It's a beautiful process. We've seen the Lord through all the different stages, and I wouldn't change it.
So I gotta ask you then, uh, what keeps it going? Like what keeps you pushing forward in every aspect, as a leader, as a servant, as a husband, father, disciple of Jesus. What keeps you going? It can be a phrase, it can be a
Yeah.
story, but what can you say that keeps propping you forward, pushing you forward?
Someone asked me that 3 years ago, I think, and was like, "Yo, JP, why do you do all this? Like, why are you?" And I honestly, I had to stop and think about it. And when I thought about it, the honest answer was because he's worthy.
Mm.
I don't do it because of a person, um, because people will fail.
Absolutely.
People will fail you. I've seen it in my life plenty of times. People will fail you. So if I did it for a person, then I'm setting myself up for failure. But if I do it for him because he's worthy, I know he's one not to fail. And so I that's been my thing. Why what's keeping me? Understanding that he's worthy of that, worthy of the way family, ministry, my own walk, he's worthy of that. And if I keep that, I'm always going to strive for better.
I appreciate the answer. Thank you. So, as we wrap up, I ask this one last question. Every person gives a different response. Um, so how you respond, it's on you. It could be a phrase, a thought, story, whatever, statement. But I gotta ask you, if you could say something to former JP or anyone who might have similar struggles or be struggling in general, whatever that looks like, what would your message to them be about your decision? What would you say to your former self or anyone in that pool?
That's a good question. So to myself,
Like your former self or
yeah,
anyone
yeah.
you may have.
So I've thought about this before. I've heard Gary. I think Bernie's asked Gary this question in the past. What would you done differently, or something like that, or what would you have said to yourself? And I've thought about that. And if I could speak to myself, I would probably tell myself not to ignore the process. I think I did a lot of that. I just kind of just didn't pay attention to the process, and not ignore it, and not to be afraid to go through it. I I'm a person that lives by not living in regret. I have these conversations with my wife all the time, like, oh, what would you have done differently 10 years ago? If you could have done something differently. I'm like, honestly, nothing. I don't think I would have done anything differently because it's molded me to be the man that I am today.
Hmm.
If I would have done something differently, I think I wouldn't, I don't know if I would have beat this JP. I would have taken a different path. And though I've gone through heartaches and though I've gone through pain and I've gone through difficult times, I've also gone through really good times with the Lord that I can't ignore. And so I can't focus on the negative. I can't focus on the trial parts. Those trials were really good and they were necessary. They were what molded me. So if I could tell myself anything, is enjoy the process. And not enjoy it. It's not really enjoyable, but trust the process.
Yeah.
Trust it. Trust what's happening. Trust that what the Lord is allowing you to go through. He's allowing you to go through it because he knows you could endure it. I believe that. And I know that scripture, he doesn't allow us to go through anything that we can't endure. And that's part of him being a good God. And so I've learned that now, JP, if I could talk to you, in the past, I would have told you, just learn how to trust God through every circumstance and lean on him. Which I think that was part of my biggest struggle. I was struggling a lot in that. And now fast forward, I'm like, it all worked out for God's good. I'm not perfect.
No,
but none of us are perfect. But it definitely worked out for good. And I thank God for that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
My brother, thank you so much for your time. Ooh. First of many, man. You did it. You did it well, bro. You sat in the hot seat. Look, you're good.
I text your one of your producers earlier, and I was like, I don't know, man. I'm so exhausted, but because of Marcos, I love Marcos. I'm gonna do this. Let's do this. No. Honestly, I definitely wanted to do this with you, man, because I love what you're doing. I'm encouraged by what you're doing, and you're doing a good job. You're doing be encouraged, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it, man. But until next time.
Yes.
That's a wrap.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for watching or listening. I pray that episode blessed you. If you enjoyed that, please tune in every month as we'll have a new voice and a new episode. Until next time, God bless.